Hello everyone, my name is Otavio and this is the Galilean Library, and today I'm here with my January wrap-up. I finished 4 books in January and I actually really enjoyed all of them, so really fantastic reading month. So let's get started. The first book that I finished in January was Dark Orbit by Carolyn Ives Gilman, and I read this with Rachel over at Calinati, and I really enjoyed it. I've already talked about this in the live show that we've did of the top favorite books that were published in 2015. That was done at Thomas's channel over at SFF 180, and I'm gonna link the live show video down below so you guys can watch it if you want and if you have 2.5 hours to spare. So yeah, really enjoyed this book. I don't think it is for everybody, but it was really interesting. We follow a cast of characters that is very interesting in this universe, in which humanity has developed a civilization in 20 planets across the galaxy, and the way that they use to travel between these planets is either by a regular starship, in which it would take ages to get to your destination, or via a light beam called, I think, jumping. Basically, a person will disintegrate from one point and reappear in the other, and they will travel at the speed of light. So for them it will take only a second, but in reality it took however long it takes for light to travel from point A to point B. So these people who commit to this lifestyle and travel across the galaxy through the light beams, they're called wasters, and basically they have abandoned all of their social interactions, all of their family and friends, because if, for example, if they're traveling from one planet that is 52 light years away from another planet, they will take 52 years to get to planet 2. And yes, basically that's the basic premise, and we are following these cast of characters who are investigating this new planet that they have found that might be inhabitable. And yes, we go from there, and it's really interesting, especially because it deals a lot with optical physics in a way that I haven't seen really in science fiction before. So that was my favorite part about this book. In hindsight, at the time I really liked the ending, but I don't think it is the best. I think the way it ended was great because of the theme of the wasters, the people that abandon everything as soon as they jump on a light beam. But the part coming before the actual ending, it wasn't the best. Like, left a lot of things unanswered, and while I know that was intentional by the author because I've seen a talk in which she discussed that, I don't think it was the best choice for the book. But regardless, it is a fantastic novel. I really liked it, and I would highly recommend it. Next, I finished 12 Kings in Sharakhai by Bradley P. Beaulieu, and this is the first installment in a new fantasy series, and I think that the name of the series is The Song of the Shattered Sands, and by the cover and the name of the series you can tell this is set in the desert. It's set in the city of Sharakhai in the middle of a desert, and we follow Cheda, who is a pit fighter who lives a double life as just a normal commoner and a pit fighter, and it's a story about revenge. She wants to get revenge on her mother's death, and somehow the focal point of her revenge are the 12 kings that rule the city of Sharakhai. There's a lot of cool magic, a lot of interesting mythology here, so that was really highly appreciated, and I think this has tremendous atmosphere as well. Really fantastic. I can't wait to read the next book in the series. I think it's coming out this year. I hope it's coming out this year, but I think it's going to be a 6-book series, so that should take quite a while. And also, for anyone who is not a fan of setup books, this is pretty much a setup book. It's just, setting up the story for the entirety of the series to be continued. And while it contains a whole story in here, this entire story is only one piece of a larger overarching plot. So keep that in mind if you want to start this. But yes, really great, interesting characters and interesting dynamics in this fantastic fantasy world. So yes, highly recommend it for fans of epic fantasy. The next book I finished was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and I'm not going to say much because I will just babble and talk a bunch. And I know there are hundreds of reviews of this book already, and all I'm going to say is that this is one of my favorite books of all time already. Yes, this was that good. I loved it. I will say it's not for everybody. If you like a story to be plot focused, to have a mystery or a central conflict, definitely not gonna be too in love with this. This is a character focused book. It's focused on the development of these characters and everything that happens to them. So yes, really, really fantastic book. If you like character focused stories and science fiction, I would highly recommend this. And I just cannot wait. I've read very recently that Becky Chambers is working on the sequel, which should be released this year, and I'm really, really excited about that. The last thing I finished in January was Seveneves by Neal Stephenson, and I also really liked this book, though I do have a pretty big problem with it. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, so really highly recommend it for anyone who likes hard science fiction. It has a really cool plot. It's about what if the moon exploded all of a sudden and it brought about the end of the Earth's surface, basically. Like, everything is going to be burned in 2 years' time, so humanity has to scramble and find a way to survive, and the solution is the International Space Station, in which they expand to become the Cloud Ark, this place where humanity should survive for the next 5,000 years or so, and be able to come back to Earth once everything is settled and the planet is livable again. So this book is separated in 3 parts. The first 2 deal with the aftermath of the moon's explosion and the development of the Cloud Ark. I really enjoyed parts 1 and 2. They are especially great if you like hard science fiction, because there's a lot of description about how they are, expanding the space station, and there is also a lot of character development in the first 2 parts, and we get some really interesting characters, some really nasty characters as well. So yes, really, really interesting 2 first parts. At the end of part 2, and this is not a spoiler, I think this is pretty common knowledge about this book, we have a jump of 5,000 years from part 2 to part 3, and part 3 is basically when humanity is finally ready to go back to the Earth's surface. And my problem with part 3 was that even though it's this crazy setting with these humans that have a lot of differences from what we are today, and this whole society that revolves around the Cloud Ark and the development of the Earth's surface to be livable again, I felt myself not caring as much as I did for the first 2 parts. It was just a bit jarring, and I guess like that jump of 5,000 years for me was not enough of a conclusion for the first 2 parts, and I kept wanting to know more about how they developed after part 2. So yeah, unfortunately that was a problem that I had with it, but still it was really interesting and I would recommend it, but keep in mind that it's pretty huge. Yes, not a perfect book in my opinion, but I still enjoyed it quite a lot. So that was it for the stuff that I've read in January, and I've also done written reviews of everything that you've seen here. Everything is in my blog, and I'm going to link all of the 4 reviews down below so you guys can check it out if you want. There's a lot more description on why I liked and why I disliked these books with specific ratings and things like that if you're interested. So thank you for watching, and if you like this, click subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.
Searching Google for The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet SQL.
That's not what I said. SQL, really? Sequel?